Yes, about the Anglophone problem. What do we really understand by an Anglophone problem in Cameroon?
Well, let me first of all say that the Anglophone problem is like the story of the elephant and the blind man. So each blind man touches a part on the elephant and calls it its own name. But I will tell you from my own perspective. The Anglophone problem, as far as I'm concerned, is situated between 1961 to 1972. And what triggered what is called the Anglophone problem was the violation of Article 47 of the Federal Constitution of 1961. The 1961 Federal Constitution had said that the federal states of West and East Cameroon would remain as they are, and there would be nothing to do to dismantle West Cameroon and East Cameroon. So that was the spirit and letter of Article 47 of the Federal Constitution. Amadu Ahidjo, nonetheless, decided to contravene Article 47 and used Article 2 of 1961, which gave him the latitude to call for a referendum. Therefore, he used Article 2 on the referendum to supersede Article 47. So what we of the West Cameroon generation regard as an Anglophone problem is the violation of Article 47, which dismantled the federal structure of West and East Cameroon. For me, the Anglophone problem has given rise to the problems of the Anglophone.
Okay. So there's a difference between the problems,
the Anglophone problem
and
which have given rise to the problems of the Anglophones.
Okay.
The Anglophone problem, like I said, is situated within the 1961 Federal Constitution.
Yeah.
Because of the destruction of the federal structure, because of the destruction of the autonomy of West Cameroon under prime ministers and secretaries of state, because of that destruction, it led, therefore, for the Anglophone expression to be changed from a statehood to a minorityhood. That minorityhood means that it moved from a West Cameroon state to mere provinces. And these provinces have now become regions. And tomorrow, Mr. Biya might call them states. That does not solve the Anglophone problem. Therefore, what I regard as the problems of the Anglophone are what we find expressing themselves now. The level of education, where we see because of that Anglophone problem, that educational system has been suffocated, has become completely submerged. We see that in the legal system. And what I keep saying that even the people of the economic operators within the Anglophone sector have not yet spoken. Because when we look at what happened to Chico Airport, what happened to Limbe Deep Sea Port, what happened to Marketing Board, these are all expressions where Anglophone economic operators are supposed to express themselves. Anglophone journalists are still teaming up to do something in terms of addressing the problems of the Anglophone. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the things that actually epitomizes the Anglophone media, protest media, is Cameroon Tribune. The fact that before 1974, there was an English version and a French version. And today what passes off for a bilingual Cameroon Tribune is actually a French Tribune with footnotes in English. That also happens in the Anglophone state media, where people give you the fact that, because there is 90% Anglophone viewership, therefore programs should actually be seen in that perspective. That is not true. But when you look at Anglophones who came into the union as equal partners, there's no way you can see that you are going to make one channel that's going to be bilingual. We're supposed to have two separate channels, one that focuses on English and the other in French. And if there's a need for a third channel as a bilingual channel, that can be done. So the problems of the Anglophone, therefore, have been manifested in many areas, whether it's legal, whether it's education, whether it's socio-cultural, whether it's economics. And that is what we're trying to solve.
But this has been on for too long, Mr. Ngwane. Why is it coming up now very powerful?
Now, you see, it is like asking yourself why up to 1990, people were suffocating under dictatorship and decided to rise in 1990 and say, no, we want a multi-partism. There is always a time for things to happen. It is also the same thing even when Arab Spring started in the 2000s. People were wondering, for such a long time, they had all been put into a box. How come that they were able now to rise, to agitate and to protest? The Anglophone problem has always been a Pandora box always waiting for someone to open it. And what one has to appraise the Anglophones for is their peaceful approach to the Anglophone problem. Unlike other problems in other countries like Eritrea, when Eritrea wanted to opt out of the union with Ethiopia in 1993, it was through military option. When South Sudan wanted to opt out in 2015, it was through a military option. The fact that Anglophones have used the force of argument for the last 55 years is credit has to be given to them. Now, but the way we find the insensitivity and the nonchalance from the other side might escalate people's sentiments into areas that might not augur well for the peace and unity that we all crave for. So why has the Anglophone problem come up now? It is something that you have to see with young people. Young people have taken up this challenge. First, we must give thanks to the fact that there is the flurry of the social media. Therefore, awareness has been raised, and also the same young people who yesteryears used to think that there was no problem are now suffering from it, being marginalized in schools, being taught in French rather than in English, and so on and so forth. So the people who thought were not didn't have a direct impact, are now feeling it, and they are rising up in arms against the other side of the government. The other reason is also that it has been a build-up. The consciousness, the political consciousness, from lone rangers like Albert Mukom, like Gorgi Dinka, now to a group that came up in 1993, the Elad Muzo and Ngwane, and now it has come to what I call collective leadership. Some people say, there's no leader. What I see is that there's no front-line leader, but there is a collegial leadership that comes from behind, and that makes the struggle more consistent, more coherent, and more purposeful.
Now, you witnessed the situations in Bamenda, in Boya, and in other parts of the northwest and the southwest region. Your take on the response from the political elites of these two regions?
Now let us say the political elites have become so emasculated that it is difficult for us to say they can have any response other than the response of either collusion or the response of silence. Now, it has been normal in the struggle of the Anglophone people that the Anglophones, elites, and by that I'm referring to political elites, have always sided with the people who appoint them. It is very rare to find someone who who gets out of the box to say things that are very independent. This is, of course, reflective of what even happened in our democratic political situation, where most of the leadership in Africa actually believes in what the people in the West say rather than in what they actually perceive. But let us put it to them. In private, some of these Anglophone political elites confess. In public, they find it very difficult to actually articulate. And in a struggle like this, we don't find it very necessary to make divisions against those who say things in private and those who say things in public. Sometimes one has to put oneself in their situation to be able to understand where they are coming from, and be able to also appreciate the fact that even though they are in the background, they are also able to even leak information as modes into the struggle. So far at that level, that's fine. But what I say to Anglophone political elites generally is that if you cannot join us, do not be against us, especially publicly. You must have the courtesy to first of all understand and acknowledge the fact that there is a problem. By not addressing that problem, you yourself might be a problem. But by at least acknowledging it and doing nothing about it, we can understand where you are coming from and also take you for who you are. So I think that Anglophone political elites, by and large, have not been able to be supportive to the struggle, but quite often, like I said, one can understand where they are coming from. And for that main reason, for me who is a moderate, for me who is a dove rather than a hawk, I can always forgive them.
Now, a lot of tendencies, we have those who want outright separation, we have those who want two-state separation, others who really want to remain in the union, but with preferential or better treatment for the Anglophones. What's your position?
My strong position is a federal position, and the federal position is that of a two-state under which there will be autonomous provinces. I have always made reference to the All Anglophone Conference draft federal constitution, which we prepared in 1993, especially led by Elad Muzo and Ngwane. Unfortunately, the population has not taken enough time to read through that constitution, because that constitution is able to bring together those who are 10-state federated and those who are 2-state federated. Of course, those who are unitarists, they don't come in. And why do I find the AAC draft constitution very relevant today? It is relevant because it takes cognizance of our historical trajectory. Where did West Cameroon and East Cameroon come from? They came into a union as two equal partners. That historical legacy must be maintained. But they also take into cognizance socio-political realities, where people want to have elected governors, people want to have their greater autonomy, so to speak. Therefore, we are looking at what they call a two-tier federation. One that takes care of the West Cameroon and East Cameroon, and also another federation that gives rise to the autonomous regions or provinces that it may be. What I fear for those who are talking of the 10-state federation, what they may not understand, is that a 10-state federation is a loser federation. And they even sometimes make reference to Nigeria. They don't follow the news in Nigeria very, very accurately. Because those in the Niger Delta, the Biafrans, are still asking for much more autonomy. In fact, moving into what they call a confederation between the East and the other parts of the country. So we who have history with us should not be able to fall into a trap where you have a monolingual situation like the US, a monolingual situation like Nigeria, and you want to bring it to a bicultural and bilingual and bijural situation like Cameroon. So what can only work is what I regard as the AAC, Draft Federal Constitution. And we are in the process of making available as many copies as we can so that we can sensitize the elites from the Francophone side, because we have the French version, and the Anglophones as well, so that they can be abreast with actually the content of that two-state by X number of regions. I understand especially Southwesterners who actually are dragging their feet towards a two-state federation. We do understand that between 1961 to 1972, there was a lot of hegemony from the Northwest leadership, from Frontier and Mona to Dwa, and that makes it difficult for them to relieve that kind of era. But the two-state by 10-state federation that we have takes care of the fact that Southwesterners will still stay within their own territory, but at the same time have some umbrella, which is this West Cameroon state, that will be able to take care of their specificities as it is within the Anglo-Saxon part of the world.
Thank you.